So what in the world are we going to be talking about today? So start off with a little bit more in depth about who I am and what in the world an Arcadis is. We'll go into a health and safety moment, and you'll understand why health and safety is important for us at Arcadis. Then we'll talk about the landscape, talk about auditing, why it's important, and why it's important to us at Arcadis, and maybe why it's important for you. We'll talk about what our strategies are and what I've observed in my career at IBM, Tririga, and other places for compliance. Talk about change management for a bit, and then talk about mastering the art of compliance and balancing and dealing with resistance and all those things. Ignore the sign. Switch on your mobile phones, maybe put them on mute. We have some swag at the end. Sorry for you people at home, you're not going to get swag at the end, but we do have some quizzes and whatnot to get some audience participation. Sorry, my Arcadians, you're not eligible. All right, who the heck is Dan? So like the introduction said, I'm a software engineer, and I was voluntold to become a software leader. I started way back in the late 90s, as the gray in my beard may give me away, in the startup world, talking about swag. There was a website called iswag.com, where you could create personalized and company-centric gifts for trade shows and whatnot. That one bust, and I landed at Tririga, which got swallowed up by IBM, and now I'm at Arcadis. I am a saxophonist. That is a tenor saxophone. I play the one next larger to that, which is the Barry saxophone, which is the big one. If you go on YouTube and look up like Las Vegas Youth Orchestra, I help volunteer for them. And my son is also a saxophonist, and he's actually much better than I am. Don't tell him I told you that. Okay. What is Arcadis? So we were founded in 1888 in the Netherlands. So it's a Dutch company, but we're now worldwide. We have over 36,000 employees across Manila, Australia, Hong Kong, China, here in India, Middle East, obviously the Netherlands, Romania, Spain, the US, Brazil, Chile, Hawaii is part of the US. But basically we go through the entire globe. And it is a very good company to work for. We're one of the best management companies and consulting firms. We've been given that award multiple times. We're ranked number 1 in ESG risk rating score in 2023 by whoever that is. The font is microscopic, EcoVadis Sustainability in 2023. We have revenues of 5 billion euros, $5 billion, it's all about the same. And we have over 40,000 projects across the globe. Projects like the high-speed rail project in the UK, bridges in New York, airports in Las Vegas, large highways in Australia, the Georgia Department of Transportation. So you think about all of the different roundabouts and highways and whatnot in states of Georgia, Alabama. We also do a lot of large projects in China. You can think of like civil engineering for rainwater collection on warehouses. What do you do if you have a huge warehouse or a huge data center and it's in a very rainy climate? How do you get the rainwater to go off of the roof of that warehouse or the data center and out to the municipality so it can be disposed of safely? Those are the sort of the projects that we have. So obviously we're dealing with real world situations and real world engineering. And so we have to be very conscious about health and safety. So with any presentation that we give, whether it's 3 people, 100 people, we always have a health and safety moment. So our health and safety moment today is think about civil engineering and the integration of software. So as a civil engineer may simulate and analyze various scenarios to build a bridge, to build a warehouse, that software needs to be robust as well. So the software that we write within Arcadis helps with the risk management, helps with the design, the construction, the engineering, and the real life maintenance of bridges and collecting that data for future use in future projects, physical construction projects, not just software projects. So we have to make sure that our software contributes to the overall safety of that. So we focus on the reliability and the functionality of the code and make sure it is available and of high quality for our civil engineers, for our environmental engineers to be able to use. Tomorrow I'm giving another topic on test-driven development and why that's important. I think you can understand why it's a topic that's near and dear to our heart. Okay, again, back to the sign of switching on your mobile phones. Get out your phones. So get your cameras out, and there'll be a QR code coming up in a couple of seconds. Again, this is a live feature for you people at home. Sorry, you're not going to be able to participate. I think this QR code will not work. Get thumbs up if people are able to connect. And if you want to use an acronym and whatnot for your name, go ahead. Do you recall what year was Arcadis founded? Was it 1889, 1888, 1988, or 2008? We are a Dutch company, but we do have offices all throughout the world. Okay, who is in first place? This will take the correct answers and also the time to respond. So 61% of you got the answer correct, and it was 1888. So let's see who is in first place. Oh, we'll just skip off of that. We'll have at the end who is in first place. So let's take a moment to understand the landscape. What does it mean to have a SOC and ISO audit? What is the impact on software development, and how do things like civil engineering, finance, and real estate, how is that impacted with these audits? Well, let's take a look at ISO first. So the purpose of an ISO audit is to assess an organization's compliance with international standards for quality, for environmental management, for best practices and other areas, and making sure that your organization meets those standards. On the other hand, a SOC audit really is evaluating a organization's controls to security, availability, testing, and process, confidentiality, privacy. It's basically to make sure that you have a documented process and something that you follow. You must follow the process. If something changes, you update the documentation. At Arcadis, we have both financial and engineering accountability. You can imagine if someone were to build a bridge and it were to collapse because there was a fault in software, that would look very bad for us, and we would be financially on the hook to have that. Okay, slide number 2, or quiz number 2. Let's get ready. So what do you think a key challenge faced by software teams is when striving to maintain agility within compliance-driven environments? So think about this. Is it adhering to strict coding standards? Is it maintaining stakeholder expectations? Is it ensuring cybersecurity measures? Or is it balancing speed and quality? I'm curious what you think the key challenge faced with audits in software is. All right, so balancing speed and quality. You are correct. Adhering to strict coding standards, is it a challenge? Maybe for some people, if you're a cowboy like I am from the West Coast and have a cowboy and just want to go off and ride into the sunset and not adhere to any coding standards. But as software engineers, we need to follow some rules, right? So it's not really a challenge for most good software engineers. Managing stakeholder expectations? Not really. You know, it's a challenge, but is it a challenge for the software team? Not necessarily in the context of software auditing. Ensuring cybersecurity measures, it's a small portion of what happens within the context of an audit. Okay, slide. Oh, here's the leaderboard. So like I mentioned before, we have the time it takes to answer the question as well as the correct question. So we have 2 questions thus far, and you took 21 seconds to answer that, so good job. What are some of Arcadis's strategies for compliance? Well, really, within the constraints of SOC and audit frameworks, the first one is discipline. And I don't mean, wrapping a ruler on your wrist or your knuckles for being bad. I mean self-discipline, someone that has self-control, someone that is able to understand what is happening within an organization, operate that, and not go off and do their own things. Now, that's not to say that they're not able to go off and do their own things, but if they are, you need to document that, right? So that's where the second pillar comes in, and that's documentation. Do what you've documented. You have a wiki, you can update the wiki or whatever documentation system you may have at any time, but make sure that you're following what your wiki says. So when the auditor comes in and starts evaluating your organization, you can point to the documentation, you can point to the wiki and said, yes, this is what we followed. Here's my source control management system. Here's my PRs. You can see that the process that we have documented is exactly how we followed. Even if there's one developer for a particular project, we have to have that documentation that this developer is allowed to merge their own code, push it to production, and whatnot. And then that leads us to that last part of data, showing that there are specific steps being taken within the merging process, within the PR and code review process, within the story and sprint review cycle, making sure that that's all documented and you follow that process. So at any point, you can go in and pick a story at random and make sure that what you have documented in your wiki is what you've followed. That's how we handle compliance. A lot of it comes down to that change management process. So the challenges within the continuous planning is sometimes you get a little loose with the rules. You have a new story that comes in mid-sprint. You have that iterative development that goes wonky sometimes. You have a production crisis that you have to drop everything for, whatnot. That's all fine. It's to be expected because you've documented it, right? So having that collaborative approach where you work on things with other people and you don't forget to say, hey, let's step back. We've never run into this particular situation before. After we're done here as part of our sprint retrospective, we're going to go back and document this new process that we just came up with so that we don't get in trouble with the auditors down the road. So it's important to understand and use your software development lifecycle tools, your SDLCs. We use Azure DevOps. Obviously there's Atlassian and all the other great tools that are available for. But understanding them and understanding how they integrate together, understanding how Git interfaces with Azure DevOps, which interfaces with the wiki, which interfaces with the GitHub Actions, and having those associations between the different systems documented so that when an auditor comes in, they can follow the story of a particular story or work item or whatnot from the beginning to end. Some lessons learned that we've put together in the last few years at Arcadis is having those cross-functional teams, the people from the business, the actual civil and environmental engineers, the people that understand the finance, the people that understand the way the business works, integrated with our teams, integrated with our software developers here. Hi, guys. And making sure that everyone is in agreement with the process and procedures that we have in place. Making sure that there is transparent documentation that is updatable by anyone in the team, and then also making sure that there's an audit trail for the changes in the documentation. So that's a little thing that may not be obvious, but some auditors have pointed that out on some of the older wiki systems, that when a change was made to the documentation, it didn't capture who was making that change. So make sure that you don't have anonymous turned on for wiki changes. You actually have to put your name next to the change in the change log for the documentation itself. Continuous training is something we always encourage. In fact, we're going through a big skills-powered organization effort within Arcadis. So we have access to Pluralsight. We have, encourage looking at YouTube videos. We encourage coming to conferences like this so that we can learn and understand and take back those learnings and bring them to the entire team for best practices and things that fit within our organization. The next thing we do is have pre-audits. So we'll either hire someone to work internally that's an auditor to go through and pick stories at random, to pick tasks at random, to pick a PR at random and see, did we follow the process? And can we get from a particular PR back to the task within Azure DevOps? Was that a story? Was that a bug? Whatever it happens to be. And then on the flip side of that, after that PR was merged, did it go into production? Did it actually solve the problem? So going back into the story, seeing did the testing occur in the story and did the acceptance criteria, was that met by that particular change? And this is something that the auditor, when they step into the organization, you have to train the auditor. So the auditor may not necessarily be someone that knows software. Sometimes they are, but usually the auditor is a very keen person. They almost think like a lawyer, and what they're looking for is gaps within your documentation and gaps within your processes, and they will tell you what those are at the end of that. So this actually can help you with onboarding, because if you have to explain to a non-software developer, someone from the business, some lawyer, about what your processes are, your documentation will improve. So it helps with the onboarding process for your new developers coming on, because you have all of the documentation laid out, and it's very easy to point a new developer to that documentation, to point them to your onboarding wiki about this is what Arcadis is all about, or this is what your organization is all about, and this is what we do. And then the final thing is making sure the managers and directors stay close to the tech. We stay up to date. Obviously I'm here, so I do like to get into code as well. These guys sitting at the front of the room actually have a different director, but as they'll attest to, Mutu's very involved with the day-to-day running of things. We all have a good understanding of the entire end-to-end of both the systems that they're building as well as the documentation, because we are primarily responsible at the end of the day for the processes for our organization. All right, quiz time. Everyone get your phones out again. All right, which of the following best reflects the approach to harmonizing agility in the SOC and ISO software audits? Is it balancing rapid development with maintaining compliance standards, ignoring the audit requirements to prioritize speed, selectively choose compliance frameworks that fit your current process, or focusing solely on audit requirements and disregarding agile processes? You may have noticed the inflection in my voice. That second one probably is not the correct answer. So I'll give you that. So what does everyone think? So the majority of you, 77%, got the correct answer, which is it's balancing that rapid development while maintaining compliance standards. So the way that you do this is you use the DevOps tools to your advantage. You, within Azure DevOps, within Atlassian, Bitbucket, whatever it is, learn those tools, learn the best practices, and use them to your advantage. I know that Atlassian has the Confluence wiki. You update the wiki at the same time to document the way that you're processing the tickets, the stories, the bugs, whatever it happens to be in your system. Same thing in Azure DevOps. It has that wiki built in. Make sure that you document your own process. And then you be a little bit disciplined in the way that you use the tools, and you gamify them. At the end of the day, you look at your velocity and all the other agile terms, but you can see over time, if you're good at following the process, that over time what you say that you're going to do at the beginning of the sprint is what you've executed at the end of the sprint. In the end, I think that's probably the most important thing, is that ability to deliver on what you promised. You'll hear me say all the time is let's update the wiki, update the wiki, update the wiki. It's something that I do. It's something that Mutu does. We have another director named Mark. He does it as well. Our architects update it. In fact, our principal enterprise architect, Drew, put together our wiki and made sure that it's all set up in Git so that we actually use Git for managing our own changes. We do pull requests when we make a change, and then it's pushed up to the wiki is what there. So we lead by example. All right. Next quiz, get ready. What solution could you use for documentation? Do you want to use an ERP system? Do you want to use a wiki or CMIS system? You want to throw something up on Stack Overflow? Or do you want to track things within Excel? Give a couple seconds. One crazy thing about Arcadis is the number one, by far, competitor to any of the software that we write is Excel. You would not believe the amount of Excel that goes on along in the construction, the civil engineering industry. It is by far what the civils and environmental engineers like to use. They understand it. And so we are constantly having to battle the requests to have things exported to Excel, because that's where I know where I can do things as an engineer, and then re-import. So that is our challenge at Arcadis, is dealing with Excel. But in regards to this particular question, what could we use for documentation? Yes. Obviously a wiki or other CMIS, content management system. Everyone got that right. Why is enterprise resource planning not the correct answer? Well, that's really for how you want to operate your projects, things with finance and whatnot. It's not really a documentation system for your own process, right? Okay, we have a change in the leaderboard. So 44 seconds, you've got 4 out of 4 correct. So good job. Top 3 will get the little swag like I mentioned at the beginning. I have mints. I have SPF sunscreen with lip balm here, or a little Lego. There's a little dump truck Lego thing. So that is the swag representing Arcadis as a construction and engineering industry. Okay, what do I mean by mastering the art of harmonization? Well, what in the world does it mean to harmonize? Well, as a saxophonist and someone that is in jazz band, harmony is taking multiple people or multiple chords at the same time and playing them in a way that they are pleasing, that they work well together. So really, as a saxophonist and as a musician, that takes a little bit of creative work in the software world, right? It's balancing that flexibility, being creative in the way that you approach things. So that means being creative in the way that you document things. We're in this day and age of AI and GPT, maybe a little bit hard for everyone to just start from scratch. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But making sure that you have the documentation and you're creative in the ways that you are documenting your process, so that it's followed and an auditor can't point out things and say, well, you actually, you say that you create stories at the beginning of the sprint, but here, there's a story that was created halfway through the sprint and you got it in. Why did that happen? Well, in that case, you would document that it may be necessary at some point to bring in a story halfway through a sprint. As long as it's documented, you'll actually pass the audit, even if it's not true Scrum. It's adapting to the world as it is and documenting that. So that's what I mean by documenting those corner cases. In the world of music, those corner cases are maybe the beginning or the head of the tune. Then you have solos, and then the solos may go on with another soloist. Then you come back to the body, and then you have the ending or the head again. And if you've ever seen a jazz band play, usually the band leader, if there's no actual director at the front, will tap their head and say, okay, we're going to end this particular tune. We're going to play the head again, and that is the harmony. That's the melody at the beginning of the tune, repeated at the end, so that things are coming to an end. So having that documented and having that understanding with the rest of the group is something that is important as a musician, similar as it is to your team of software engineers, business people, scrum masters, directors, testers, and whatnot. The other thing with audits is it is very easy to fall back into waterfall. My little AI generated Yosemite scene here, I tried to ask it to push the waterfall backward with wind, but it didn't cooperate. So we're having the waterfall picture there as something not to fall back into. There's many problems with waterfall, and even in the civil engineering and construction industry, we have understood the value of Agile and working as Agile. So you may hear something as a design and build as you go project. Within Las Vegas, we have what's called the Spaghetti Bowl, where there's two major interstates that interconnect, and there's about a 2 to 3 mile, 5 kilometer strip of it that is going through a major rework. They didn't sit out at the beginning and say, okay, we're going to take these lanes and make it this way and whatnot. They went almost a half mile at a time, a kilometer at a time, and looked at the landscape, looked at the different plots of land that they had to buy up from the people that lived there. Or in some cases with eminent domain, at least in the US, people may not want to sell. So then what do you do with the land? How do you move that around? Those are all things that would be impossible to do in a short amount of time if you approached the civil engineering project in a waterfall manner, because you would have to have all these things in place before you put a shovel in the ground. So that's what I mean by don't fall back to waterfall. You take it one step at a time. In the civil world, you now with the build and design and build projects, you build it a half mile at a time. You take a look, you start planning for what's next. That's your roadmap, but you may not know exactly what context and what the situation is going to be for that next roadway when you get there. And finally, using retrospectives to your advantage. Make positive changes in the documentation, in your process, in the way that your team is structured, in the way that you write the stories, in the way that you write the acceptance criteria at the end of every sprint. All right, I mentioned AI before, so here's my AI slide. If you're not sure where to start, use ChatGPT, use the large language model as your muse, as something that you ask it a question. How would I go about documenting my software development lifecycle? Use the chat feature within ChatGPT. Say, well, that's not quite right. We actually do it. We actually use Azure DevOps with this process, and have that conversation. And don't rely 100% on the output. Make sure you edit it. Use it as a co-pilot, not as the sole source of truth. A lot of times AI can hallucinate and give wrong answers. So make sure you double check that and validate that if you are using AI to help document your process, that you validate and you verify what's happening with it. A funny story with AI is in the civil or rather physical space. When ChatGPT first really busted on the scene a year and a half ago, I asked it if an airplane could be able to take off if someone had replaced the runway with a conveyor belt, with a treadmill. And there is a TV show that they actually proved that yes, it could be done. But AI just refused to accept that answer. It relied on the learnings that it had as part of its training model on some false information that people had put into various forums and whatnot, and it stuck to its guns. So in the end, I went through and physically told it about the Mythbusters episode, and no joke, the AI turned around and said, yes, I'm aware of that episode. Yes, I'm aware that the airplane did take off, but an airplane cannot take off on a treadmill. Even though it had the information about the episode I was referring to, it still said, no, it's not possible. So be careful with AI, validate it and verify. Another story within civil engineering is we use sometimes AI and scripts and whatnot to do like that rainwater collection. We still require a PE, the professional engineer's stamp on the blueprints to validate and verify that an actual rainwater or building or bridge is correct. So, so even though we're using software to help accelerate and standardize and automate a lot of these processes, we still have that human touch to validate that AI isn't hallucinating. One of the great things about Copilot and some of the Microsoft tools these days is it gives the links, it cites its sources. ChatGPT was a black box. You weren't necessarily sure where it was getting its information. So if you are going to use a large language model in the context of helping you write your documentation, your process, make sure it's one of those that cites its sources. Understand where it's getting its information from so that you can be sure that you're using an industry best practice. And then you adapt it for your own organization. All right, how do you deal with resistance? Hopefully everyone understands the reference to the resistors up there. Best way is to address concerns head on. Recognize and acknowledge that someone has a concern, but emphasize the importance of compliance. It's easy to do in our organization because we all understand the necessity for compliance because things could go catastrophically wrong if a bridge were to fail, if rainwater collection on a warehouse were all of a sudden to collapse and the roof were to cave in, if a highway were to have the wrong banking and a bad curve, and all of a sudden, big lorries and big trucks were flying off and into houses. So it's easier to get buy-in from an organization like ours. But if you're working in finance, if you're working in general software, try to relate back using civil engineering analogies so that it can help stress the point about why compliance is important in your particular organization. Again, with open communication, you want to make sure that everyone knows about the wiki, everyone is aware that they can update the wiki, and you want to foster that good environment to where if there is an idea that maybe outlandish, maybe you feel it is a little bit of resistance, that you talk about it. You understand what is the root cause of their reluctance to make a change. And in the end, maybe it's a valid concern and you address it. Maybe just talking through it alleviates their concern and you can continue on. So encouraging that feedback. We are very open at Arcadis to receiving quality feedback. The Netflix model, what do they call it? That extreme ability to be frank and candid is very much part of our culture at Arcadis. Probably because we were founded by the Dutch, and if any of you know about the Dutch, they don't take bullshit. So in fact, that is one of their favorite words is, don't tell me the bullshit. These guys are laughing here. They know exactly what I mean. And then training and support, improving everyone's ability to understand what is happening as part of your process, what is happening as part of the larger organization, and supporting them in terms of training, in terms of feedback, in terms of quarterly reviews, and training on how to update process documentation. All of that is important and can help deal with resistance. All right. Oh, where did my quiz go? Oh, it's not a quiz. This is an active put in your thoughts. So, do you have any concerns out there in the audience about how you deal with resistance? Is there anything that I've said that's untrue? Is there anything that I've said that I haven't covered? I got a few people talking. As part of my time at both Arcadis and IBM, I've Crush. That may be someone's name. At first, when I had to do audits, it was something that my shoulders just dropped. Like, oh, why do I have to do that? It was like a 5-year-old, right? A 5-year-old trying to eat their broccoli. I didn't want to do it. I didn't understand doing it. But in the end, taking a different mindset and saying how an audit can help improve your organization was really what changed my mind. it sounds absolutely insane for me to say that. My 2012 version of Dan wouldn't have said this, but I actually enjoy audits now because I've made them easy, because we have things documented, because I can point to anything, and because I can count on my crew to be able to follow the process and understand that if they see anything go awry, they change it, they know exactly what they need to do to correct things. All right, so the concerns dealing with resistance is balance, ego, that's a good one, communication, working well together, realizing in non-civil projects is tough, process. So balance becomes easier the more you go through the Agile process. The more that you take the 5 minutes to go update the wiki, the more that you realize that at any step within the software development lifecycle, you need to be accountable for that, so that you can go back and not necessarily place blame if anything goes wrong, but understand why things went wrong and make changes for that. There was a slide in one of the main sessions this morning about, pointing blame at people. Really, at the end of the day, the blame is on me because I'm the responsible for the team. So if anything does go wrong, and especially if it happens twice or 3 times, and I didn't catch it, I didn't document it, that is absolutely my fault. One time, we'll make the change. Failure is always an option. Make the change, document it, move it forward. The listening skills, that is hard. How do you address the concerns if you have bad listening? You send them back to kindergarten. I don't quite know. A lot of times it's just understanding, getting to know your staff, getting to know the different people that you work on the team, understanding how different people think and how different people communicate will sometimes improve in the listening skills. Ego, always ego. Some of the most stubborn developers are some of the best developers out there. They don't think that they need to follow a process. And in the end of the day, sometimes they're the ones that has to spend a weekend fixing something. We're a firm believer in work-life balance, but if someone has a big ego and they did something out of process and it caused a big failure, maybe they have to go and fix something when they could be doing something else more fun. All right. So hopefully I've been able to convey why it's important to understand the landscape of both the SOC auditing and ISO auditing. I don't necessarily have a quiz for this, but is there anyone here in like finance or things that, do you guys use ISO and SOC audits and you have to go through that? Yeah, so understanding that from a monetary point of view, it's important. If you lose money in your bank account, the day's gonna suck, right? If you're in the civil engineering world and a bridge collapse, that person is not going to go home. So that is the reason we take that very seriously. If you're building a game, well, maybe you don't need to follow these go through an audit and follow these processes, but it's going to make your quality of your game or whatnot better. It's going to mean that you lose less money because you have bugs, because you went through and you had a renegade, build some microservice that, consumes $3 million in 2 days on AWS. If you had a process in place, you would be immune to those sort of renegade cowboy developers that go off and do that. So it's really applicable to a lot of different industries. You always want to encourage feedback and communication within your team, from your daily stand-ups, just one-on-ones, communication at the beginning of your sprints, from your sprint planning all the way to the end, the demos and the retrospective, making sure that everyone on the team communicates and has their opinions heard and validated, or have the communication to understand why they may be wrong. blending that agility and compliance, a lot of the time, following the Agile process with it well documented, you will already be in compliance. If you have sort of that Wild West startup mentality, it's going to be a little bit harder to get there. So that's where, as you work towards being a more mature organization, you'll really come into that Agile harmony. Talked about having that discipline, not as in the ruler against the knuckles, but being someone that will think about a way to document something well and go in the wiki, go in your CMIS and update it. Following that change management process and documenting when there's a deviation to that change management process. And then fostering that mode of agility and the ability to take side steps and document why you took the side steps from a normal Agile process is important. Again, with resistance, overcoming resistance, it's hard. That's why we get paid. We don't get paid for doing the easy stuff, right? We get paid for doing the hard stuff. So fostering that open communication, addressing concerns head on, and there's always going to be trade-offs. There was a session yesterday about, with the 5 stars on the different approaches for things. Same thing in Agile, same thing with doing ISO. Or SOC auditing is you're going to have some trade-offs by documenting some things well. You're going to have some trade-offs by not having them document well. But in the end, you want to document the truth and stick to it. All right, got a couple more quizzes for y'all. All right, which of the following is a key strategy for promoting agility within compliance-driven projects? You want to ignore the compliance requirements to prioritize agility? Do you want to implement rigid processes to ensure strict compliance? Do you want to avoid change management process to maintain agility? Or do you document what you do and then follow it? Hopefully everyone gets this right. If not, maybe I need to speak louder. Maybe I need to drink more water. I don't know. Who knows? Okay, let's see. In the end, okay. Oh, 84%. I got a solid B. I think I need to take a drink of water. So in the end of the day, I think the one takeaway I want from you all to have is document what you do and follow it. If you make a change, document that and follow it. Use AI to help you if you're not a creative person. You don't understand. You can't articulate what you want. There are tools out there that can now help you. We're not a classroom. This is real life, corporate life, right? So you won't get marked down for using ChatGPT or other LLMs like you would if you were, like my 15-year-old in high school. If he used ChatGPT, he would probably get kicked out of his school because it's considered cheating. In the corporate world, it's okay because you take the time to validate, verify, and edit what ChatGPT has gone through. Don't take it for face value. All right, Wasim, still the leader, 53 seconds. Good job. Okay, so what is the other key takeaway? Hopefully I don't need to read all these. You should all know this. Now there may be more than one correct answer. Maybe this is a multiple choice and maybe there are multiple answers. Is any one of those a false positive? I don't know. Am I one of those tricky professors that puts in a false answer in there? Oh, so close. So the takeaways are all of them. So document it and follow it, obviously, 100%, yes. Dealing with resistance head on, don't sidestep it, don't be afraid of it. Sit out in front, take it on, don't let it fester, don't let it boil. And then blending the Agile process with SOC and ISO, a little bit more art than science. You have to be a little bit creative in how you document and the words that you use and put into the document. It takes a little bit of creative writing. So think about that and use the LLMs and whatnot to your advantage if you're not a great writer. And then obviously fostering and encourage open communication. It's always important to make sure everyone's views are heard and identify any doubts that you may have. All right. Okay, so congratulations to Wasim. Where's Wasim? All right. You get first choice. Actually, all top three, come on up. Wasim gets first choice. Yes, we got the little Lego. You got the, all right. You took the Lego. And third place, Rajat. All right, so we got mints or, all right. And you get sunblock. Thank you, everyone. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Mazzella. I think my session only had one Z in it. That's Mazella, not Mazella. So make sure you follow me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot. Thank you, everyone.